It's time for today's travel and cruise industry news. With the latest from travel and cruises around the world, here's your host, Chillie Falls.
Hey, good morning and welcome to Travel and Cruise Industry News on this, the 9th day of July in 2020. And before we get started here, we had some link issues early this morning, so I want to make sure that I'm on the air where I'm supposed to be on the air. And appears that I am. Okay, that's good. So I'm where I'm supposed to be. We had some link issues earlier. So before I get started, see Gretchen's in the house and Pete from London is in the house. Several things. Before I get into news, let's get some personal stuff out of the way. Those of you that know, my niece is a professional pet sitter. And the COVID has just wrecked her business. I mean, nobody was traveling. Her regulars weren't working, so they canceled out her contracts of her dailies that she did. But she's a professional pet sitter, and now they're starting back into getting some business going for Amanda again. And this is the first weekend that she has been triple booked. And asked me if I would pick up the horse farm, which, of course, I stayed out the horse farm a lot last year. But when Amanda has overload, I cover it for her. And this is one of those times. So I'm moving out to the horse farm later on today. It should not affect the programming at all on this channel. I will continue to monitor things from out there. And I can always go live if something happens major. Also on Saturday morning, I've debated whether to drive back in and do the show Saturday from here in the studio at the farm, or to stay out at the horse farm and do it out there. At this point, I'm probably going to stay out there and do the show Saturday from the horse farm. And then Sunday for a Pete show over in London that I co-host, I will definitely be in the studio for that one because that's a important show, probably the most important show we've had since we started this, as far as I'm concerned. But at any rate, that's a big show, which we'll talk about in a little bit. All right, we got a terribly mixed message in news this morning. A couple hours ago, our friend Dave Monk notified me of a major story happening over there in Europe, and about 15 minutes later, our friend Pete sent me information on the same thing. So I had a whole bunch of information on what's going on in Europe this morning that affects cruising over there. And we've got a major conflict with the story on this side of the pond. But this morning in England, in the British Isles, I guess it was in England, Great Britain, the government has issued advice against cruise ship travel. The hardened advice follows from FCO guidance against over 70s and those with existing health conditions taking cruises, which was issued in March as the COVID pandemic hit Europe. The government updated its advice today, saying the Foreign and Commonwealth Office advises against cruise ship travel at this time. Now, I don't know how much teeth they have as far as being able to regulate what's done. I do know that Saga and Rudigerten and several other cruise lines are continuing on with their plans on doing some cruising this summer. I'm not so sure that this is clearly a blow against cruising in Europe in the long range, but at least as of when we came on the air, some of the plans that some of these smaller companies are making on starting some cruising around Great Britain and around Europe for the summer months, those plans are continuing on. However, that's clearly a blow to getting things back to normal in Britain or in Europe in general, despite the fact that things are going so well right now. Things seem to be progressing rapidly. Now, keep in mind, especially our friends there in Great Britain and England, they just opened up, the pubs and stuff, and you got people going out and not doing some of the things that they should be doing. And that's the social distancing and wearing masks and, those kind of things that folks, hand sanitizing, don't touch your face, all those things. We got to keep doing that. That's caused the major problems right now in this country as we open too soon and too many people are not following those CDC guidelines over here, guidelines on how to stem this virus. Now, on Tuesday of this week, and this is how the news this morning from Europe with them going against cruise line travel over there, we got to balance that against this side of the pond. And on Tuesday, if you remember, I kind of went off on Norwegian and Royal Caribbean, and the two CEOs got together for this big press conference, and it sounded like they were going to make some major announcement about how they were going to proceed with the new health initiatives on the ship. And it sounded to me like they were ready to jump right in with the CDC and get the green light like our friends at Bahamas Paradise already has. And that wasn't the case. There was virtually nothing said of any importance in that press conference. It was a waste of time, and I kind of went off on them. Well, the truth of the matter is this relationship between the two companies, some more information has come out on it. And a health official who's been working as part of the Joint Safety Task Force between Royal Caribbean and Norwegian Cruise Line said it could be easier to avoid coronavirus on a cruise ship than in many major cities. Now, who in the world would say that? Scott Gottlieb. He's a former Director of Health and Human Services. He is a doctor and is probably the second most respected public health official in the country, right behind Dr. Fauci. For Scott to come out and say something like that in an interview, it was an interview with Travel Weekly, is amazing. So as I've delved further into this, Dr. Gottlieb is one of the co-chairmen of this committee that's been established by Royal Caribbean and Norwegian to establish the protocols for not only their two companies and their ships, but for the whole cruise industry, even though like Carnival's not actively involved in this, but the hopefully what comes out of it, Carnival will accept as well. Gottlieb said the panel, which was created by Royal Caribbean CEO Richard Faye and Norwegian Cruise Line CEO Frank Del Rio, would be using the guidelines set forth by the European Union as a framework for the planned resumption of sailing. So you can see where we got a little mixed messaging here. They're using a lot of the framework from Europe, and then Europe comes out this morning and says, we're not recommending cruise line travel. And yeah, it's just a mixed message mess as far as I'm concerned. But the strength of the story in this is that Dr. Gottlieb, who is a almost daily contributor to CSNBC and has been one of the totally honest people about this whole COVID thing all along. He's not sugarcoated a word. He doesn't care what the administration says or doesn't say. He's going to tell you exactly from a health perspective what he thinks. And I certainly appreciate that. I really like him. I had no idea he was even involved in this. His co-chair is former Utah Governor Mike Leavitt, who was also Secretary of Health and Human Services under Bush. So they're the two co-chairs. These are two guys that know what they're doing in the whole overall health safety arena. Now they've got a whole bunch of other experts on this committee as well, and they're looking at everything. So actually, what was, I thought, a ridiculous press conference between the two CEOs. The bottom line story is they've got some really good things working now, and something that's going to help us in the long range of getting back to normal, despite what's going on in Europe today. So that's my take on that. And of course, Dr. Gottlieb, if you're not familiar with him, you've probably seen him before. He's on TV a lot. He testifies before Congress a lot. And of course, he was Food and Drug Administration under, who was he under? I don't remember which president, Clinton maybe. Anyway, big time. Knows a lot about health and welfare in this country. So, all right, Carnival finally has announced the second ship that has been sold. Probably some of you remember we talked about Costa Victoria, I don't know, 10 days ago or so. The second Carnival Corporation cruise ship that's been sold is a P&O ship, Oceana, which will be leaving the fleet. The buyer of the ship has not been announced. The Costa Victoria, which was announced a week or 10 days ago, has been sold. It since then has been revealed that it will be scrapped, as opposed to having a buyer that bought it to be used as a ship. So we do know that Carnival is planning to sell or liquidate at least 6 cruise ships. We do not know. There's been wild speculation about the other ships to be sold. So that's the second one. So there's at least 4 more coming from Carnival. And the other breaking news item this morning, which that's the Enchanted Princess. She has completed her sea trials over there at Fincantieri shipyard in Italy, and is back in the shipyard for the completion of the construction and refitting and all the things that go on about that. The sea trials, of course, is the first major hurdle in a new ship being completed. And that was finished up, I guess, yesterday, and she's back at the shipyard today. May have been finished up today. All right. Some of you probably saw yesterday that I had a story on the weather situation. What may be the first hurricane of the season is Cristina out in the, it's actually located almost due south of Cabo San Lucas, a couple hundred miles, but due south. As of 9 o'clock, so that was a couple hours ago now, its maximum sustained winds of 55 knots at 65 miles per hour. Minimum central pressure at 995 millibars. Located, like I say, a couple hundred miles due south of Cabo. It's moving west-northwest at 11 knots, which is 13 miles per hour. It is still expected to become a hurricane today. And we'll see what that's going to mean. So that is Cristina. It's not expected to hit land at all. Now, the other thing we're watching is what could become Faye, which is in the Atlantic basin. That's the one that came across the panhandle of Florida up into Georgia and then kind of meandered out toward the coast. It's a low pressure system now, right off the coast of Carolina, just a little bit south of like Wilmington. As of 8 o'clock this morning, shower and thunderstorm activities increased overnight in association with the low pressure located 60 miles east of Wilmington, North Carolina. The thunderstorm activity is currently located well east and northeast of the low pressure center, but only a small increase in organization or a reformation of the center closer to the thunderstorm activity could result in the formation of a tropical or subtropical cyclone later today or tonight. The low is expected to move northeastward or northeastward, just off the shore of the Outer Banks later today, and then basically just follow right along up the East Coast, basically following the 95 corridor. So we're expecting quite a bit of rainfall from that, but this is not going to be very bad because it's moving in a little bit cooler water. It's going to, once it gets through the warm water today, it's going to go into some cooler water, and you got a little different wind shear, and this sucker's just going to fall, probably go right straight up the coast, and it's going to cause some rain to fall. But not a whole lot of wind. It's not any major storm or anything. This might make a couple days of wet weather, especially up into New England. Of course, there's areas up there that need lots of rain. So that's probably a good thing. All right, let's pause for just a second. Word from Scoot Around.
Do you have a bad back, bad hips, bad knees, or any other mobility issues? Think about Scoot Around. For scooters, walkers, wheelchairs, even oxygen needs, delivered right to your cabin. Scoot Around for all your mobility needs on your upcoming cruise.
Okay. Most of you know, we've talked numerous occasions about Pete Show, the Cruises for Solos, Cruise Amigos, that I co-host with our friend Pete Hall and John Reitmeyer up in Minnesota. By the way, I hope John, I haven't gotten to the chat room yet. I hope if John's here, I hope you guys are safe from all those tornadoes up there that were running around Minnesota yesterday. But anyway, Sunday is going to be a really, really good show. So I want you to mark your calendars with this one. Our guest's going to be Sue Bryant. Sue is a big time writer, travel writer. She's written 25 books or something like that, and hundreds of articles. She's traveled the world over. I've been talking with her quite a bit. Some of her stories are fabulous. I mean, for instance, folks, what would you do if you got on a cruise ship, and especially if you're a lady? And, you know, the first thing you do is you go to your cabin before you maybe go up and get a drink. That's what I do, at least. Stow my carry-on gear and take off to go find a cocktail. What would you do if you opened up your cabin door and found a drunk asleep on your bed? Well, that's one of the things I'm going to ask Sue on Sunday. So you want to maybe join us. By the way, that's Sue. She's kayaking over there. That's the Rialto Bridge in Venice. Of course, you're not allowed to kayak in Venice anymore. So that was back when that was allowed. And as you can see, she's done some crazy stuff traveling. That's one of them. I want to ask her if that was probably when the water over there was still pretty gross. It's a lot cleaner now with no ships and stuff around. But anyway, that's Sue Bryant. She's down there in in Venice in a kayak. And I'm sure she probably wrote a story about that. She's got literally stories like that all over the world. I did ask her about her favorite ship. And as a matter of fact, she volunteered that in the information she sent me before I even told her that I was going to ask her that. Her favorite ship is Star Clipper. I've never been on a Clipper. I would love to. Fabulous that's her favorite ship, and she's been on hundreds of cruises on cruise ships. I don't know hundreds, but lots. And her favorite place in the world is Raja Ampat in Indonesia. She said that's the most gorgeous place that she's ever seen. So just a little information on our guest Sunday over there in London. That's 3:00 Eastern Daylight Time, 8:00 in London time with our friend Pete and John. And our guest will be Sue Bryant. And I am so excited and looking forward to this Sunday. That's going to be great. I am coming in. I definitely will not be at the horse farm for that one. I'll be in here because to talk to Sue. So, all right, let's see who's here this morning. I said hello to Pete and Gretchen. Nikki's with us. Hard to believe it's almost mid-July. Yeah, it's almost mid-July. None of us are on cruise ships. Tom Henry says, good morning, Gretchen and Pete. Amy's here. Amy says, howdy. Amy, you were on time today. The good for you. Tom Henry. Yeah, Tom, I saw this a post you made earlier today. Intrigued by the news this morning, a White House spokesman said CDC guidelines are just that and not regulations. Of course, that was in reference to the CDC guidelines for opening schools. If they're guidelines and not regulations, then why do the cruise ships have to bend to the CDC? It's a very good question, and I don't have a real good answer for that. Tom, except they do. They have to get the blessing of the CDC to be able to sail. But I agree with you. I mean, the CDC put something like that out. You'd think it would be the law. I'm going to say one thing about that. Again, folks, I do not want this to turn into political stuff. But the more I look at the situation in this country with the people that just don't wear masks, and I look at the situation in the areas that admittedly now even the political folks are admitting that they tried to go too fast and open too soon, and they're having to reverse some things and back off and close some things. And there's even consideration of places closing down completely again, which nobody wants. I believe, Mr. President, if you're listening to me, which I'm sure you're not, but Mr. President, it's time we have a national directive on wearing masks. Just even do it for 90 days. Put it out there and say, look, if you're going in public, wear a mask, period, the end. And let's see if we don't get a handle on this thing. But it's going to take a national initiative, a national directive coming from your administration, Mr. President, to get some of these people off the fence and to do what's right for all of us. The reason I came to that conclusion, I mean, other than logic telling me to do that, I was an interesting interview with one of the airline folks, and they said the reason that on an airplane you have to buckle your seatbelt, and if you get into turbulence in the middle of a flight, you have to buckle your seatbelt. That is a national initiative that gives the airline personnel the strength to make the determination and do something about it on the airline. If you're on a flight and they tell you to buckle up, you got to buckle up. There's no disagreeing with you that they're trampling on your rights because they're making you put your seatbelt on. That's part of a national initiative. That's the same thing the president needs to do with the masks. Because even the airlines who are requiring masks be worn on airplanes, that if a passenger pulls the mask down, of course, if you're eating or drinking, you can do that. But if they leave it down or they have it partially, to leave your nose open and cover your mouth, they don't have any teeth to go to that passenger and say, you got to do this, because they need a national initiative to fall back on. So, Mr. President, let's do the right thing. Please do an initiative, bite the bullet for 90 days, and maybe then you can open the schools safely. But anyway, so I rounded off on Tom's point. Tom, you had an interesting point and one that I totally can't answer. So, and he also said that they were in Cracker Barrel eating and no Wi-Fi and her data was used up. That's why he missed the show the other day. We had an interesting issue with the Cracker Barrel here in my area, which is back when we were going out to eat. We went there for breakfast on a fairly regular basis, once every couple weeks or so. But they had an employee tested positive in the last day or two. But then they tried to cover it up, and they got in big time trouble with the health department. So, I don't. There's nothing wrong with an employee testing positive. You take the steps after that. Don't try to cover it up, folks. Pete says, I think one problem with this advice is with travel insurance, which is why it's such a blow, and I would expect the reaction from the cruise line in the next few days. And I follow Spain's. Yeah. Pete, I wish I had an answer for you. I think you're probably right. I think this is a terrific blow to the overall policy of cruising over there, but I'm not sure. I'm not sure how much teeth there is to it. And I'm not sure if the companies that were planning on doing some cruising and trying to get things started, if they're going to be allowed to. I don't know. I don't know enough about the teeth of that to see what's going to happen. Gretchen says, I'm not going to Miami or Phoenix anytime soon. Yeah, I wouldn't either. Well, Emily's with us. Good morning, Emily. Sonny's here. Sonny down Mississippi. Hey, Sonny, how you doing today? Of course, Tom says hello to both of those ladies. Cindy's here from Dallas. Cindy, good to see you again this morning. Emily says it's hot and humid up there in New York today. Just on the early morning news here this morning, Emily, they announced that we have 10 more days of 90 degrees or better. So hot and humid in Virginia. It's been I think today will be our 8th day of 90 and at least 10 more days of 90. And of course, I'm going out to the horse farm. When I'm down in the barn taking care of the horses for this next, it's going to be hot as hell because that barn gets toasty. But anyway, that's coming up. I'll be posting some pictures of the horse farm and the horses. Cindy says, yeah, Dallas area. The heat index will be close to 108 today. Oof. Yeah, it's a little warm down there. I have to go back after the show and water Mom's plants, Emily says. Yeah, because I'm going to be, I've already been told, given my instructions at the horse farm, I got some plants and stuff that I got to water while she's gone too. So, and Gretchen, of course, Gretchen should be in Europe right now. Yeah. I just hope everything gets back to normal so we can all start cruising again. Oh, goodness. Nikki says, missed y'all on Tuesday. We were driving back from St. Augustine. Did listen a bit. Well, Nikki, glad you're back home, safe and sound, up there near Jacksonville. Were the beaches crowded in St. Augustine? Tom wants to know. I'll see if Nikki answered that, but I bet I know what the answer is. Yeah. Emily says she wish I could go to a Greek island with part of a crew. It's my mom's birthday on October. She'd like to go on our Greek Islands cruise, which is conflicts with her mom's birthday. So looking forward to that. As a matter of fact, Pete, I haven't even told you yet, but one of my buddies from a former Norwegian sailor, talked to him yesterday, actually before our cocktail party yesterday afternoon, and he wanted to know how it's been. He's from Wichita. I call him Wichita Tom. Wichita Tom. But he asked what I was doing, and I sent him information on our cruises that we're booked for, and he's looking into it. So might have another one joining us over there for our cruise with Pete over in Europe next October for the Greek Island cruise and the Western Mediterranean cruise out of Rome, on the Norwegian Dawn out of Venice for 7 days, and then the Epic out of Rome for 7 days. Cindy, I'm concerned about my October 25th cruise being canceled. I did. I understand the concern, Cindy. And our friend Jason, I haven't seen Jason this morning, but Jason's supposed to be on one October 3rd, I think it is, on the Breeze. And I did some checking on that for Jason, and that's still scheduled to go on October 3rd. So, I question whether they're actually going to be able to sail by then. But my fingers are crossed, and I hope that, in fact, Cindy, you'll be able to sail October 25th, as will Jason on October 3rd, and I'll be the start of us getting back to normal. Not real sure that this country's going to be ready for that. I'm not real sure we're going to be ready to travel that much, especially in these extreme hot spots. But we'll see. Pete says, Chillie, I've booked kayaking for you in Venice. Pete, are you out of your mind? I'd sink a damn kayak. Remember, I'm a big fat guy. I'm not like Sue. I mean, she's the right size for a kayak. Hell, I'd sink one. We actually have two kayaks right outside my window in the backyard that belong to my brother-in-law. I wouldn't get in a kayak for as much as I love water. I'd be scared to death. I'd drown myself in a heartbeat. Let's see. Preach on, Chillie. Yeah, I know, Nikki. I'm sorry, but I have to rant every now and then. Cindy says, amen. Thank you, guys. I appreciate the fact that you guys let me go off and rant every now and then. I try to do it as nicely as I can, but oh my goodness, Mr. President, come on, give us a break. Do the right thing. I know you, and I understand why he wants the economy. Remember, I'm a businessman. I understand how important it is to get the economy going, but boy, it's a whole lot more important to me to be healthy, and get the economy going. And so let's do it together and do it complete and do it right. And there's a great model to follow. Again, I don't want, this is not political, but look at what they've done for Emily up in New York. I mean, that was the worst place in the world there for how many, a couple months. And look at it now. how well they've done. And again, folks, I'm not making a political statement on that. As a matter of fact, if I went a couple months, I wasn't even sure what political party Governor Cuomo was. I didn't care because he made sense. And I like that. So anyway, that's the main things I had for this morning. Again, I'll be going out to the horse farm this afternoon. I got to be out there about 2:00, or a little bit earlier than that. So I'll probably do the Saturday show from the horse farm and anything between now and then. And then Sunday, I am going to come back in the studio for our show from London with Sue Bryant. And by all means, folks, mark that one on your calendar, because I'm telling you, this is going to be a really, really enjoyable hour with just a fascinating lady. So that's it for now, guys. Thank you all for being with me. And as always, folks, stay at home if you can. Stay safe and stay healthy. And I'll see you on Saturday. Thanks for being with me. You guys have a great day.
Thank you for watching today's Travel and Cruise Industry News. Join us every Tuesday, Thursday, and Saturday morning at 11 a.m. Eastern for another episode. Travel and Cruise Industry News is a production of Chillie's Cruises.